You noticed the shift in his voice before the sentence finished. You felt the temperature of a room change before anyone spoke. You mapped the exits before you knew there was a threat. Most people call this intuition. They are wrong. This is a form of intelligence built under pressure, and almost no one talks about what it actually cost you to develop it. There is a name for what you carry. Traumatic intelligence is what develops when a child's brain is forced to process social threat at speeds most adults never train for. The environment that shaped this wasn't safe. It was unpredictable. Your brain learned to fire faster, read more, and retain everything, because not reading the room had consequences. Researcher Bessel van der Kolk called this kind of adaptation embodied knowledge, learning written into the body before language existed. Here is what that looks like from the outside. You walk into a room, and within seconds, you have already assessed it. Who is tense? Who is performing? Where the conflict is hiding? You are not doing this consciously. It happens before you decide to look. This is threat mapping, a cognitive pattern documented in children raised in high-conflict environments. The brain learned that reading the room fast was the difference between a good evening and a bad one. You still do it in every office, every dinner, every party. Not because you are paranoid, because once you had to. And this one connects to something even harder to name. You catch the half-second flicker before someone controls their face. You hear what a person means under what they say, and you know when someone is lying before you can explain why. Psychologists call this hypervigilant empathy, an accelerated ability to read nonverbal cues developed through repeated exposure to unpredictable emotional environments. The cost runs daily. In any conversation, you are processing on two channels at once: what is being said and what is actually happening. By the time you get home, you are not tired from the day. You are tired from translating it. There is something underneath this one that matters more. You are already 3 steps into a scenario that hasn't happened yet, tracing the exits before the fire starts. You rehearse the argument the night before it happens. You prepare responses to things that were never said. This is anticipatory threat modeling, what develops when a child learns that surprise is always dangerous. Your nervous system built a prediction engine. It runs all the time. The price is that your brain struggles to live in a moment that feels safe because part of it is always scanning the next one. Rest feels like a vulnerability you cannot afford. Now stop for a second. Everything you have heard so far, the scanning, the translating, the constant prediction, none of it is a disorder. It is engineering. Your brain built tools from the only materials it had. A child who needed to survive a chaotic home did not become broken. They became precise. What comes next is not a darker version of this story. It is what that precision actually made you capable of. You understand people faster than they understand themselves. You see their pattern before they finish the sentence. You know what someone needs before they ask, and what they are afraid of before they name it. This is not a gift that arrived randomly. It is the result of years spent studying 1 or 2 unpredictable people with everything at stake. You became a specialist. The cost is quiet. You often know too much, too fast, and you spend enormous energy pretending you don't, because you learned early that being right about people is not always safe. The next sign is where it gets strange. You sleep. You still wake up exhausted. The tiredness is not physical. It runs deeper. Your nervous system has been running at high load since childhood. It never fully downregulated. It never had the signal that said it was safe to stop. This is chronic baseline activation, a term used to describe nervous systems that never received consistent enough safety cues to reset. You are not lazy. You are not depressed in the simple way that word gets used. You are a system that was never given permission to go offline. The fatigue is the proof of how long you have been working. The next one is the most important sign so far. You do not think of yourself as intelligent. Not really. You deflect compliments. You attribute your accuracy about people to luck. You assume others see what you see. They just don't mention it. They don't. They can't. What you do is rare, but you were likely never told your perceptions were valid. You were told you were too sensitive, too much, imagining things. When intelligence is never reflected back, it becomes invisible to the person who holds it. You stopped trusting what you see, not because it was wrong, because trusting it used to make things harder. Calm feels wrong. Safe feels like waiting. When nothing is wrong, something in you goes looking. When things are going well, you are braced for what ends it. Your body knows one rhythm: threat. Peace doesn't register as peace. It registers as the pause before. This is nervous system habituation to danger, the brain that was rewarded at the cellular level for staying sharp. You don't know how to be present in safety, because safety, for most of your life, wasn't a state. It was a gap between things. You are not broken. You are calibrated for a world that no longer exists. The first thing to understand: your perceptions are not symptoms. Stop treating your intelligence like a wound to manage. It is information. The shift is learning to use it with choice rather than compulsion, noticing when you are scanning out of habit versus when you actually need to. The second thing: exhaustion is not weakness. It is a signal your system has been asking for permission to rest for years. You do not need to earn stillness. The third thing: you were right about what you saw. You were always right. The work is not convincing yourself of that. It is building a life that finally confirms it. You came to understand people by surviving them. That is not a soft skill. That is architecture built under pressure. The intelligence you carry is real. The exhaustion is real. The way you can read a room, a person, a silence, that is real. And none of it was free. What you are beginning to understand is that the tools that kept you safe do not have to run constantly anymore. You get to decide when to use them. What would change if you finally stopped believing that your own calm was a warning sign? Send this to someone in your life who notices everything and says very little. They have probably never had a name for it.